Enderman Slayer 7 is a core aspect of every Skyblock player's journey, because it allows you to unlock the fabled Terminator. And with this, you will be able to go through the game with ease and basically unlock one of the two main items for progression. And as you probably already know, tier 4 Voidglooms are a little bit hard to kill. And lucky for you, today I'll be going through how you can kill them with this easy 400 mil setup, and I also won't be one of those guys who just randomly talks about the tier 4's abilities. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so right before we begin, I just wanted to mention I will be uploading a ton more this month because I need to hit 2.5k by the end of the year, because if I do, I kind of made like a deal that I would get my friends G-Drag. So yeah, please like and subscribe. It just means I'll be making better content as a whole. Yeah, back to your video. So the setup you'll be using is kind of unoriginal, but you won't need an artifact and you also don't need an E-Drag. And that is, of course, Final Destination with 25k to 50k kills, or you can get over 50k, but that's up to you, and that should cost about 60 mil. Then we've got an Item Split Katana with about tier 6 enchants. If you're not yet EMAD 6, well, just grind tier 3s using your Vorpal. Shouldn't be too hard, and this guide should still help you. And yeah, just get Swarm with it and some tier 6s. That'll help a lot, as I'll talk about later. And then the pet, which is another crucial part of this setup, is of course the Mythic E-Man, because it basically acts as your tally, and it just reduces so much damage. It's pretty cheap, about 60 mil, and you can get a Crochet Tiger, or you can get a Turtle. I mean, if you get a Dwarf Turtle Shelmet, that just basically means that you'll be losing a bit of attack speed, but I guess it helps with your KB. If you're having trouble with KB, get that, but honestly, Crochet Tiger plushie is pretty good for that. Finally, we've got about 500 magic power. That costs you about 150 mil. It's pretty cheap and gives you a good amount of damage. With the, well, the accessory power thingy, you want that on Itchy or some sort of power that gives some strength and crit damage. Hopefully it's like a balanced amount, so if you got a lot of strength, because you probably have Withered on your Atom Split, well, just get like Hurtful or something. Something that gives you a good amount of crit damage, because that just balances your damage out, making you do the most damage possible. Then the rest of the 50 mil is spent on a Wither Cloak, a Wand of Atonement, Flora, Necro Sword, and no matter what, get yourself a Gloomlock, because it's absolutely overpowered, and I don't know why nobody uses it, because it's just really good for its price, its requirements, and honestly, you can just heal with it anytime, because you've always got Overflux, like Overflow Mana, and you can just cast it whenever you need to. So on to the actual guide. So as you'll probably know, I'm not one of those guys who'll talk about a tier 4's abilities for like 10 minutes, so let's get right into the thing. So first of all, we've got taking too much damage on boss spawn. So a lot of people will just stand right next to where the boss spawns, and they'll just take a ton of damage as soon as it spawns. So just a small tip is that just always get your Necromance mobs out, stand further away from them, and make like a mob barrier in front of you, like a meat shield or something. And as soon as the tier 4 spawns, it means that the tier 4 will be a lot more aggroed on your tank zombies as it walks right through them. And another little thing is that if your Necromance mobs are about to die, just make sure you get the tier 4 to walk through them. So just walk through the tier 4 and walk through your Necromance mobs, and that just basically means you won't be wasting more money on different Necro Swords for more tank zombies. So right now, this was by far the most important point when I was doing my tier 4s to get my Terminator, and just note that I was also taking a little bit more damage than you because I had an artifact and an E-Drag, and that basically means that I was taking about 10% more damage than you were, and I only did this because of course I can get a little bit more damage with that, and that is pretty nice for me. But honestly, this setup still does the job done, and it is like 2 times cheaper. So yeah. So of course, nobody mentions this, but this is just like a little thing. It's that you should always keep walking when there's a boss near you, or like you're fighting a boss, because if you read the fine print of the actual ability, it says that the boss does half of its damage as AoE, which means it does the other half of its damage as melee. And for some reason, I didn't see that, so I just kept standing really close to the boss, and that just basically meant that of course I was taking the full damage straight head on. Don't do that. you want to keep walking backwards, and that is usually why you start taking these huge chunks of damage when you keep fighting a boss. And so that is one of the main parts. And then the second thing is that Siphon, yes, Siphon, don't use anything else, is absolutely broken. So no matter what, your Siphon will be doing more than half of all the healing during the boss, because you'll be hitting it so much through ferocity that you'll be healing all its damage back as your own health. And that basically means that you won't be dying, and since you've got your Enderman, that's a decent amount of damage reduction and healing. So you should be able to easily out-heal damage with that. And then finally, with your healing items, only use your Florid if you're really low, because then you can spam it. And with your Wand of Atonement, it's just pretty good for the fight overall, but yeah, also don't spam it, like I said with the Florid. And use your Gloom Lock. If you're really low, or you think you're going to die this fight, use your Gloom Lock. You might be losing 8% damage for 40 seconds, but that is absolutely worth it for a saved boss. So yeah, your Soul Flow Battery gives you the overflow mana that you need, so when you need it, just spam it. Well, just right click once, and you'll get some decent health back, and yeah, you won't be using any mana because it's all from your overflow mana. And really, it's pretty good, it's really cheap, and honestly, it does so much healing, so just get yourself a Gloom Lock. So since all the abilities when you're doing a tier 4 cost a decent amount of mana, you always want to be saving mana. So like me, I've only got about 2k mana right now, but I'm on like an accessory power for that. So with you, you'd probably have about 1.2k mana, or even less if you're not as good as me. And that'll basically mean that you will have a ton of mana problems when you start off. And I didn't take the route where you actually think, I just spent money on it. But really, you don't need an Overflux, and really all you need is a Mana Flux sometimes. You might not even need that, but if you do have some mana problems, do get yourself a Mana Flux. Place it before the boss, not right after the boss spawns, or else you really will be having mana problems because you just got half of your mana entirely taken away right there. So yeah, generally have all your Slayer items have like your misc items always have alt Ys on them, because honestly it takes so much less mana to actually use them, and in the long run, since you'll be spamming these items, well, not really spamming them, you'll be using them all through the fight, you'll be using a ton of mana as a whole, and you don't want to be running out of that. Then of course, if you really need mana, like always have your Slayer items on. What I mean by your Slayer items is like your Soul Flow Battery, your Pocket Espresso, and just generally the things that will give you a little bit more mana while you're in combat. Most of these of course come from Enderman Slayer, so get those because they will help a very big ton when you're doing your Slayers. So another little problem that you'll probably encounter at the end of your fight is that the new Kubi fixations will become really annoying as they keep spawning and you feel like you have to look at them, and as soon as you keep looking at them, you get distracted off the boss and then you die. So what you'll want to know is that they just fall apart very quickly and you don't have to look at them for too long, and really they shouldn't be like dealt with too much at the time unless you've got 3 or more of them. They're just there. They don't really do too much to you, and if they're 3 or more, just look at 1 of them or 2 of them and just go back to your boss, because since they start spawning so late, they just don't really do too much. You can just out damage the boss, kill it, and then its fixations will just disappear. And while we're talking about phases right now, I just wanted to mention that during Broken Heart Radiation, that is basically some free time for you to heal, get some more mana, get your health back, make sure you know what you're doing, and yeah, it's just some resting time. So while we're talking about phases, I just thought I'd mention that. So yeah, that's basically it. That's all you need to know, and you can't go wrong with this because nobody else talks about this, and this is my experience with Enderman Slayer and basically everything that I failed with when I'm doing this. So really, if you're having any more problems after this, probably just all in all, just get yourself an Overflux, because after you do that, you absolutely can't go wrong at all. Gives you so much mana, gives you a little bit of extra health, and just makes it that much more bearable to not need to think about your mana, think about absolutely your health, damage, the boss health. Yeah, it just makes it so, you don't have to think too much more. But yeah, if you really are still struggling after this, get an Overflux. That's all I have to say to you. And really, yeah, that makes tier 4s a lot easier, a lot faster, and you can actually do them. So yeah, hopefully this guide helped you a lot, and yeah, I'm reaching 1k soon. Subscribe, I don't mind. and I guess I'll see you in the next video.